Hey guys, welcome back to Elise Reads and Speaks. Today I am bringing you my September wrap-up. In the month of September I read 16 books, so not as much as the previous month, but still I feel like I had a good reading month because I had a lot of 4 stars and I had a 5 star, so I consider that a win. So let's just take it from the beginning of the month and go through what I read to the end of the month. The beginning of the month I started off with Hitched The One, which is the last book in the Hitch series by G.K. DeRosa, and I love this one. I gave this one 5 stars. I had so much fun with it. Just to recap, this is the one that was like the Bachelor setup with paranormal suitors. I'm not gonna go into it because again, I've mentioned this series a couple times and you know what happens, and anything that I would give you for this particular book would be a spoiler. But dude, I gave every single book in this series 5 stars because it was so much fun. Next, I listened to the audiobook of My Contrary Mary. This one is a collaboration between Jodi Meadows, Brodi Ashton, and Cynthia Hand. I have read their other compilations with the Janies. There's My Lady Jane, My Plain Jane, and My Calamity Jane. I loved My Lady Jane, and I wasn't as sold on the next two. I think I gave Plain Jane like 3 stars, maybe Calamity Jane I gave the same, but I loved My Lady Jane. So what I loved about My Contrary Mary is that it went back to the world that I loved in My Lady Jane because they're linked, you know, Lady Jane Grey, Mary Queen of Scots, around the same time frame. So I was very excited to be back in that world. It was so good, and it had the same sense of humor, and I found myself just like smiling and chuckling as I was listening to it. And I also thought the audiobook narrator was really good. So when I listened to My Lady Jane, I believe that one was narrated by Katherine Kellgren, who unfortunately has passed away. So I kind of had my expectations high, even though I knew that she wouldn't be the one narrating it. The narrator for My Contrary Mary was just as good. Like I really, really enjoyed my time listening to it. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you loved My Lady Jane and you were kind of bummed out by the next 2 in the Janies, try this first one in the Mary series because I was pleasantly surprised. Then I listened to Not a Happy Family by Shari Lapena. This one was one of my book of the month picks, and I just was in the mood for something a little different, like a mystery. It deals with the family. It kind of seems like they're all hoping for this money and their parents end up dead and you're kind of wondering which one of them did it. Dude, it hit the spot. It hit the spot for me. I listened to the audiobook and I felt like the narration was really good and the different points of view I was just into. Like, this was a fun way to pick apart 3 kids in a family, kind of see how they're privileged but also how they've been treated kind of poorly by their parents and which one of them was gonna snap. So I'm not going to give you any spoilers for the end of the book because I want you to be guessing as much as I did. But if you're looking for a mystery to kind of scratch that itch, I highly recommend this one. I gave it 4 stars. Next, I listened to the audiobook of Tokyo Ever After by Emiko Jean. This one was so cute. Like, this is the Princess Diaries, okay? That's really what it is, an Asian Princess Diaries, and I was all about it. I love the Princess Diaries. I mean, I never read the books, full disclosure, but I watched the movies, and they're just so lighthearted and fun, and it was so cute. And it really wasn't, I know it's pitched as a romance, and you know, a romance does happen in there and it's fine. But what I was really into was the relationship with her and her father, who, if you remember the Princess Diaries, the father is like dead by the time she figures out who she is. In this one, the father is not dead, the father is living, and they start building a relationship. And I really enjoyed it. And I noticed when I looked on Goodreads, it says Tokyo Ever After #1, which means there's gonna be a #2, which means I will definitely read it. I gave this one 4 stars, had a great time with it, and made me happy. Next, I read my e-arc of The Dollhouse by Charis Cotter. This one, I was really hoping for some like middle grade YA spookiness, and it's kind of weird. Like it turned kind of psychological, and I am finding that unless the psychological stories that I read are done really, really well, then I think my brain just checks out. This one kind of went back and forth. It was kind of confusing. Like the whole time you're kind of wondering, like, who are the ghosts in this house? Is it the modern day girl that's visiting the people of the past? Or is it the people of the past that are visiting the modern day girl? And I don't even know if it like really wrapped up in the end. I felt like by the time that I got to the end, I finished the book and I was like, I'm still confused about what exactly happened. Like, there are going to be people that love this book just because of first of all, the cover. Okay, the cover is great. The cover makes you want to open the book. That's why I requested it. I was like, wow, this looks pretty neat. I'm into like dolls in a dollhouse possibly being ghosts that she meets. Like, I think that sounds like an interesting idea. But then the unraveling of the story and the parallels, and you didn't know who was dead or what the story actually was. Like, I was very confused by the end. And I feel like if I get to the end of your book and I'm still pretty confused, I have to go at 2 stars. Then I listened to the audiobook of The Jasmine Project by Meredith Ireland. This was so fun. This one has a bachelor spin on it because she like has these 3 suitors and she's gonna whittle them down. However, the fun part in this is that she doesn't really know that she has these different suitors. So she breaks up with her long-term boyfriend because he decided that for the summer he wanted to keep his options open, and her family's like, yes, this guy sucks. Like, now is our time to get this guy completely out of the picture. So the family has this group text that's going on. I will say, I listened to the audiobook, and I think if maybe I read the physical book, I would have had more fun with it, because I'm guessing there was like a mixed media presentation of these text messages. I could be wrong, because again, I listened to the audiobook, but just something to consider. In these group texts with her family, it was so cute because they're like, you know, team so-and-so, and they're really like throwing these bachelors in her path. So she doesn't realize that she is being put in these little meet cute situations to date these guys. She's, you know, deciding that she's going to keep her options open too, and ends up dating these different guys. And her family is kind of like rooting for which one they want to win. Honestly, like, that's not even the main crux of it. They really want her to recognize her own worth, to see that the guy that she was with didn't really see her and didn't really notice what he had right in front of him. Like, I don't know, I thought that was really sweet. And it was nice to put into a romance book, because it was like, your family is, yes, keeping a giant secret from you because they're arranging all these meet cutes for you, but they're really doing it because they love you so much and they want you to be with somebody that recognizes how great you are. Like, it was really sweet, and I was totally into it. I gave this one 4 stars. Next, I listened to the audiobook of These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. I feel like I was not expecting much from this because I heard that people weren't crazy about it, but I actually ended up enjoying it. Like, I think this one was a solid 3.5, and I ended up rounding up to 4 because I feel like I would read the next one. I feel like when I give something 3.5 and I don't think I'd want to read the next one, I round down, but this one I rounded up to 4 because I was like, yeah, I'd want to see what happens next. I like witches, like, I like LGBT representation. I thought the mystery in here was good. Like, I really was wondering who was coming after them. I liked the different types of witches there were in here. I liked the past relationship and how that was coloring her future relationship. Like, I don't know, I was interested. I was interested in what was going on. The only thing that I didn't like in this is that I felt like I completely missed something. The way that it referred to previous information, like, you know, a background story, instead of just giving me the background, like, it made me feel like I was in the middle of a series. I actually went back to Goodreads. I was like, did I start with the second book or something? Because the way that they're referring to it, it's like the reader, should already know what they're talking to. I don't like that. This is the first book in a series, so I didn't like that style of writing. Like, it made me feel stupid that I didn't know what was happening. But the thing is, I didn't know what was happening, and you won't either if you read this book. Like, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. However, the actual, like, modern present day stuff that was going on, I was into. I had a lot of fun with the witchiness, perfect for this season, and I hope that I'll read the next one this month. Then I completely changed genres and I listened to the audiobook of The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. So this one is about a girl that is sexually assaulted by her brother's friend in the middle of the night. Nobody knows that it's happened. She was young at the time. I believe she was gosh, was she going into freshman year? She was young, like middle school-ish age, right before high school. So she didn't really know what to do. She was afraid to say anything. She didn't think that her family would believe her. And even more than her family not believing her, she was in a state of shock. She just didn't know what to do. This was a close family friend for years that all of a sudden raped her, you know, took advantage of her, and her life was shattered. So that happens right at the beginning of the book. Like, it's not a build up to that point. This whole book is about how she deals with it afterwards, how it completely impacts the rest of her life and her decisions from that point on. And I really, really liked that. So full disclosure, like I'm not a rape victim at all, but something happened to me that it colored my decisions from that point on too. And I really felt that some of the decisions that this girl was making completely realistic. Like, she became very promiscuous. She did not care who she was hooking up with because she just wanted agency over her own body and her choices. And that was the part that I was like, yes, like somebody's putting to words what I went through. And, you know, it's a part of me that I kept really buried. And, you know, I still pretty much do. I don't talk about that time. But seeing that somebody else was able to put to words something that I've kind of gone through, I just, it pulled at my heartstrings. And I felt like by the end of the book when I was crying, I was like, I feel just seen. I feel seen by this book. Was it a perfect book? No, but it really, really pulled at me, and it made me feel seen that I gave it 5 stars. Then I listened to the audiobook of House of Holo by Krystal Sutherland. I picked this one up because I watched Rachel at Book Boop, and she was gung-ho about this book, and I was like, oh my god, this sounds really good, and I have to read it, and it's spooky time, so I'm gonna read it. Okay, so I think I might have expected a little too much from this one, so it kind of fell flat for me. I liked the spooky feels that I got from it, and by the end of the book I was like, okay, that really was twisted. Like, there were some good things in here. These 3 girls during their life, when they were younger, they went missing. They were gone for, oh gosh, was it like 7-8 months or something? And then all of a sudden they miraculously reappear, and when they reappear in their neighborhood, they're like completely naked. So nobody really knows what happens to them, and they don't remember what's happened either. So like, they're trying to go back to their lives, but they kind of don't remember where they were for this portion of time. I don't know, very spooky. However, there's something creepy that goes on too. Like, people know that they're these 3 girls, but they're also different than these 3 girls. So I don't know, it's almost like they came back with magic or just something different in their chemical makeup. Okay, that's the best way I can describe it. I'm not gonna spoil anything for you, but it definitely takes some twists and turns. And I gave it 3 stars because I was into the story enough to hold my attention from start to finish. But when I got to the end, I was just like, you know, I don't feel like I was excited by it, and I don't feel like it was a kind of like spooky, fairy-ish story for me. So that's why I'm sticking with 3 stars. However, if this sounds interesting to you, I do recommend you pick it up because there are people that love this book. So there's a good chance that you will fall with the other people, and it just kind of fell flat for me. Oh, I already skipped some. All right, we're going out of chronological order, but that's okay. That's okay. So I read an e-arc of Escape to Witch City by E. Latimer. This was a middle grade read, and I don't remember much about it, and I gave it 2 stars, which is why I probably like skipped over it because I forgot that I read it. I did read it. Can't tell you what happens in it. 2 stars. Usually that's what happens with my 2 and 3 star reads. If it leaves no impression, it like just vanishes from my brain. I also read Stepsister by Jennifer Donnelly. So I will say with this one starts off so strong. If you're not familiar with this one is about one of the ugly stepsisters from Cinderella, okay? So it starts off the book with her deciding to cut off her toes to fit into the glass slipper. It wasn't her brilliant idea, it was the evil stepmother's brilliant idea, but that's where the book starts, with her cutting off her toes to jam her foot into this glass slipper and hopefully get the prince. It started off with a bang that I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be great, this is gonna be great, this is gonna be great. Unfortunately, it just petered out halfway through. Like, you know, anytime this book, well, any book seems to go on a journey, an expedition, all of a sudden my brain's like, I just don't care anymore. I feel like if we stayed right in the Cinderella world and we stayed right there for the aftermath instead of her like going off and doing her own thing and finding out who she is, I would have been more into it. That's not to say it was a bad book though. Like I did like the character work in this book. I liked the enriching things that they added to the original Cinderella tale. I was into that. It was the journey that I just didn't care about. I'm undecided if I would go on to the next one. I don't think the next one is Cinderella themed. I think it's like Snow White themed. It's called Poisoned. It's got an apple on the cover, so maybe. But just the fact that I felt underwhelmed by the end of the book and it started off so strong, I had to go with 3 stars. Then I read Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo. This one was really interesting. So this one takes place in San Francisco. I think, oh gosh, I already lost my time frame. 1960s, around there, around a war. So the McCarthyism was big around that time, where, you know, you go around, you see any Asian person and you think that they're a communist because of how they look. So the main character in here is Asian and she's also a lesbian. So it's like she's navigating 2 really tough things in her life because, you know, she constantly feels like somebody is looking over her shoulder, and she is figuring out who she is and how she can be, you know, her true authentic self and be safe at the same time, because pretty much all the odds are stacked against her. I really enjoyed this one because I felt like I got a history lesson. I mean, I'm not one of these people in need of this representation, but in my straight opinion, I thought it was good representation. Like I felt like it was done really well, but again, like, who am I to talk? I'm not a lesbian. So you know what? If there is a lesbian that has read this and you feel one way or the other, you should comment down below and tell me what you think, because your opinion is a little more spot on than mine. The story itself though, like I was just into. They would go to this Telegraph Club that was for gay people, and the Telegraph Club gets raided at some point, and then all these people are kind of thrown into the spotlight and people are talking about them. There's even some stuff in the newspapers about how these social demons, you know, are infecting society and all that. And all of this was historical fiction because, again, it was like 1960s in San Francisco. It was a good book. I was really into it. I gave it 4 stars. Next, I listened to The Project by Courtney Summers. This was weird. This was a weird book. So this is also the author of Sadie, which was, I feel like, a showstopper. Everyone and their mother seems to love Sadie. I love Sadie. I gave Sadie 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook, sounded like a podcast, was totally into it. So I was just hoping, not expecting, but hoping for something that amazing from this author again. I unfortunately did not get that, but this book wasn't bad. Like, it dealt with cults. This girl was trying to get back in touch with her sister that was taken in by this cult. And while she's going through these interviews, because she's a reporter, she's trying to like report and do some research on the cult so that she can find out where her sister is within it. Everything kind of starts to change, and she starts getting sucked in because she realizes how great this cult really is, and that maybe she had a bad opinion of them the entire time without knowing all the facts. And then everything keeps kind of like going back and forth, like, are they really bad? Are they really good? Like, what should I believe? And I kind of liked that because I thought it showed 2 instances of people that could be taken in by cults. One, the first sister was just looking for anything. You know, she wanted to feel wanted, she wanted to feel loved, and she was easily sucked into this. The second one, this person has already lost everything, you know, maybe not her job, but she feels like she's floating around, and maybe she wasn't looking for that same love. She really wanted to find her sister. So this was kind of unexpected. But when you go into something that's unexpected and all these people just kind of slowly start changing your mind about things, I don't know, like I felt like the cult portrayal in this was really realistic to me, and how it can suck in some different types of people and how it actually happens in real life. I enjoyed that. And again, I'm making this book sound really great. It was weird. It was a weird book. I don't know. It was a weird book. I gave it 3 stars. I'm still thinking about it afterwards, so I guess it's more like a 3.5, but it's still kind of weird, so I'm still sticking with 3. Then I listened to the audiobook of Perfect on Paper by Sophie Gonzalez. This was a pleasant little surprise for me. I'm not usually into a lot of contemporary books, like contemporary cheesy stuff. And this might be an author like I previously mentioned, Cameron Lund, that just speaks to me. I think Sophie Gonzalez could possibly be that, because I was so into this. Like, the premise is that this girl that's bisexual, she has this, think of like Ask Anne or like Ann Landers, those columns in the newspaper where people write in their problems and she gives them advice. She's decided to start this at her school because her school is full of rich kids and she's not rich, and she figured, hey, I can make a buck off something like this. However, they don't know who they're writing to, so it's anonymous. They just put it in a locker. She has the combination for the locker. She opens the locker and gets all this stuff out when nobody's watching her. Finally, somebody was smart enough to like stalk the locker at the end of the day and realize, oh, this is her. This is the person that everybody goes to for advice. I don't know why nobody thought to do that before this guy, but I digress. So he kind of like, I don't want to say that he bribes her into doing something, like he's not, blackmailing her, although it was kind of portrayed that way. But he just wanted to get advice from her about how to win his ex back. And then, it's a romance, so you know what's going to happen. He's not going to end up with the ex. However, there's some interesting stuff in here because this girl that's giving the advice, she's like in love with her best friend, who's a girl, has been in love with her for years and has maybe not given great advice when she realizes it was either by this girl or about this girl because she wanted to be with her, and she kind of comes to terms with that. However, as all this is happening, she's developing feelings for this guy that is trying to win back his girlfriend. And she's also dealing with that bisexual identity because she feels like if she tells people that she's starting to have feelings for a guy, it's kind of like bisexual erasure. And I've heard a lot of people talk about this before. Again, I'm straight, I can't speak to the representation, but I do feel like, my girlfriends that are in this boat that are bisexual and are in heteronormative relationships could really see themselves in something like this. And I just felt like some of the conversations that came from this were good in this book. Like she didn't want to say out loud that she liked a guy because she didn't want people to think, oh, well, you're straight now. Like kind of just erase her whole identity. There was some good stuff in here, man. There was some good stuff. I was totally into it. 4 stars. And then my last 2 books of the month were kind of around the same theme. So first, I listened to the audiobook of Admission by Julie Buxbaum. This was pretty much about the case of Lori Loughlin and Olivia Jade and what is her husband's name, Massimo or something like that. It was the college scandal, how like parents pretty much figured that their kids were too dumb to get into college, so they like paid a bunch of money. They lied about them being on the row team so that they could get into USC. Like, I don't know. I think that's so offensive to your kids. Like, hey, honey, I think you're too dumb to get into college, so don't worry. I'm going to take care of this in a very illegal way. Like, whoa. Okay, but whatever, my family, we don't really come from money, so that has never been an option. So I can't tell you why people do the things they do. So this story was pretty much that college scandal. Like I pictured Lori Loughlin's family as this family, and I like how the girl was portrayed because this girl, the main girl that was going into college, she didn't know, her parents didn't outright tell her, but she was getting hints and she knew that something wasn't right and she didn't speak up about it. So it was like, how much did she really know? And her younger sister that was very smart and can get into college by herself was also getting these hints and would say something to her older sister. But again, nothing was done about it. Like, for example, she got an accommodation for being diagnosed with ADHD for the SAT. And her younger sister was like, you don't have ADHD. And, the older sister kind of shrugged it off. Like, maybe I could. You don't know. Like, it just makes me think, like, in this scandal, in the real world where this scandal actually happened, like how much did these kids know? I don't know. It posed in a very interesting light. I'm talking about this book like I love it. It was just okay. Like it was nothing lasting. I did think it was a good story that held my attention, but by the time I got to the end of the book, I was just kind of like, take it or leave it. So I went with 3 stars. And then the last book was, I said, in the same theme. I listened to the audiobook of The Ivies by Alexa Donne. So this one I enjoyed a bit more because this one was kind of like, like mean, these mean girls. Think of like Pretty Little Liars. They're called the Ivies because they go to this school and in a high school, and they all decide which Ivy school, which Ivy League school they're going to apply to. And in this school that everybody pays so much money for their kids to go to, there can't really be any repeats. Or if there are repeats, there can only be 2 people applying to one school to kind of trick the early action, early decision deadlines, because they can't take so many people from one school. I don't know if that's true. It sounds legit. I don't know. I did not apply to any Ivy League schools, and I didn't care, so I don't know. But this was interesting. Like, one of them was, Penn State. The other one was Harvard. Another one was Yale. Another one was Brown. Like, it was just kind of like mean girlish. Like, this is where I'm applying. Nobody else can apply there. And if you do apply to the place that I want to go to, I'm going to kill you. So that's where the mystery comes in. So, the whole mystery is that there were a couple people that ended up applying to Harvard. So the one Ivy that was known as the Harvard girl that was supposed to get into Harvard did not get into Harvard. And one of the other girls that applied to Harvard didn't tell anybody and got into Harvard, ended up dead. So you're like, oh, what happened? So it's this whole mystery. I mean, clearly there's the girl that you think did it because she's the one that didn't get into Harvard, but then there's a lot of other stuff at play here and all these secrets start coming out, and I had such a great time with it that I gave it 4 stars. All right, so those are all the 16 books that I read in the month of September. If you have made it this long, leave me some love down below. How about some fun emoji? Oh, you know what? It's October right now, so leave me something spooky like a ghost or a pumpkin. All right, that's all that I've got for you today. Thank you for tuning in to Elise Reads and Speaks, and I will catch you next time. Bye!